Stanley was not a director who looked for reality. He was an operatic director. Stanley said, real is good, interesting is better.
He always worked a lot with actors. I mean, he'd sort of go off in a huddle with whoever, and you could see them talking for a long, long time and really talk things through and chat it through.
Danny, what happened to your neck? Danny, what happened to your neck?
Shelley Duvall actually had a much bigger part in my original script because, of course, I sympathized with her and I gave her things to say. She was involved in trying to figure out what to do.
You did this to him, didn't you?
He was interested in a person that was probably more in love with her partner than her partner was with her, and who was needy in the relationship, and would seem to be able to be perceived as somebody that might tolerate the intolerable longer than one would think that someone might. And she was able to be very needy.
There's someone else in the hotel with us. There's a crazy woman in one of the rooms. She tried to strangle Danny.
I think he saw that, he saw that she was a gifted actress, but he also knew that he wanted her to literally be at the end of her tether, and therefore he was mean to her on the set, and he pushed her harder in order to get the level of kind of hysteria out of her that he felt that the role needed.
Has it ever occurred to you what would happen to my future if I were to fail to live up to my responsibilities? Has it ever occurred to you? Has it?
Stay away from me.
He felt that he had to create that in his own relationship with her.
I'm very confused.
Kubrick wants the truth, and that authenticity that he puts into all his design is the same with his actors. This is an undervalued part of his films, I feel, because his actors actually exist in the space, in that moment, and he gets them there by whatever means necessary.
A lot of trouble went into finding the boy, of course. That was hugely complicated.
Hundreds and hundreds of children were interviewed in the United States. Obviously, we needed an American voice, an American boy. And we finally hit on Danny Lloyd in Peoria, Illinois.
Great thing about this kid, Danny Lloyd, was he was on the program with Jack and Shelley and everybody else. He was there for Stanley as many times as it took.
How'd you like some ice cream, Doc?
The most famous take was in the kitchens, the scene between Scatman and Danny. And it went to 88 takes.
It's like I go to sleep, and he shows me things. But when I wake up, I can't remember everything.
Scatman said, Stanley, I can't do it anymore. Danny was there. So as a result, we didn't feel like we were torturing him, and therefore we could do it and not feel like we were abusing a minor.
And the fact that Danny happened to be called Danny also allowed a certain ease. It cut out one of the barriers between him and the character, that Kubrick was able to say to him, Danny, do this. And I think the two of them had a really good relationship.
You're scared of me to 37, ain't you?
Kubrick never liked big actors, never liked stars. But when he got around to The Shining, he thought back over actors that he had already thought of using in other films. And his original casting for his Napoleon project, which never got made, was Jack. And also he suited Warner Brothers because he was a bankable name.
I dreamed that I killed you and Danny. Oh, my God.
He thought Jack was a great actor, and Jack is a great actor, and he thought he would be an amazing person who could do the transitional stuff from Jack to here's Johnny.
What we got involved in was looking at old Nicholson films, and so that then generated a decision to write a more antic Jack.
I had a lot of discussions with Stanley about how elusive perfection is.
It is very often said, very often in a critical way, that Stanley did so many takes. And this criticism is quite wrong, because first of all, he rehearsed with the camera running. So instead of doing long rehearsals, he just simply called it take one.
So sorry, sir.
I always said, when you work for Stanley, it removes the main problem for the actor, which is pressure. He's not going to stop until it's exactly the way he wants it, right, wrong, or indifferent. It is going to be right.
It's his mother. She interferes.
Jack would give Stanley, in effect, the entire smorgasbord of performance from catatonic to hysterical. He'd give him every gradation all the way up.
Stanley's investment in a film was investment in time. We had a very frugal operation, usually. Few people, small crews, but we took a long time.
It was a way of getting a lot of material so that second thoughts didn't get lost. Juxtapositions you might not have thought of, you could make work now.
Wendy, baby, I think you hurt my head real bad.
Stanley couldn't understand why you spend all this time and money preparing and getting to the actual moment of filming and then rush through the filming. He just felt that was backwards, that he'd spent 5 years preparing his picture. He'd spent months and months building the sets. Now it comes to this moment, he's going to do 60, 70 tries to see what happens, even if take 5 is a terrific one.
Just give me one more chance.
The editor told me, he said, I watch these all the time, I could see it happening. He said, first of all, the actor would give a pretty basic, his best shot. And then Kubrick would say, okay, go again, and he'd do it a little more extravagantly. And then he'd hit about 12 or 14 takes in, he'd start to get tired. So he'd start to save himself. And then Kubrick would keep going. And finally, the actor had nothing left to give. And Kubrick would still want more. So the actors would start doing crazy stuff.
Mouth for mouth, wherever you are.
Funny faces, screaming, howling. And if you look at Nicholson's performance in the film, they're the scenes you see, the 27th and 29th take. But to get those, he had to work his way through. It's very difficult to say, all right, take 1, you're crazy. It won't work.
Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in.
I saw Stanley St. Albans, and he asked me, how did you like my movie? And I only seen it once, and I didn't love Shining the first time I saw it. I have since seen Shining 25 times, one of my favorite pictures. Kubrick films tend to grow on you. You have to see them more than once. And I was telling him all the things I liked about it, and he saw right through me. And he said, well, Stephen, obviously you didn't like my picture very much. Tell me what you didn't like about it. I thought Jack Nicholson, who was a great actor, and I thought it was a great performance, but it was almost a great kabuki performance. It's almost like kabuki theater. He said, you mean you think Jack went over the top? And I said, yeah, I kind of did. And he said, okay, quickly, without thinking, who are your top favorite actors of all time? And I want you to think, just name off some names. So I quickly, went Spencer Tracy, Henry Fonda, Jimmy Stewart, Cary Grant, Clark Gable. He said, stop. He stopped me. He said, okay, where was James Cagney on that list? And I didn't have it. I thought, well, he's up there high. I said, but he's not in the top 5. He said, you don't consider James Cagney one of the 5 best actors around. You see, I do. This is why Jack Nicholson's performance is a great one.
Here's Johnny.
Of darkness.
Of course, I intended to change my jacket this evening before the fish and goose soiree.
Very wise, sir. Very wise.